Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. Well, man, it's great to meet you. Before we get into island hopping, I want to begin our conversation in your world of music and jazz by asking 4 years ago, this pandemic, especially in New York, was quite intense. How did you end up making it through that time period, and how did it influence this album?
It had a huge. Honestly, I don't know if this album would have happened without the pandemic, and I'll tell you why. I was living in Bed-Stuy, um, uh, Brooklyn, and about 2.5 blocks from Woodhull Hospital, right on Willoughby. So it was a one-way street that ambulances would drive, and they just had the bodies in trucks outside, like 2 blocks away. It was real dark. And I had no internet because I went on tour at the end of February 2020, and I was gonna switch internet service providers. And I was like, well, let me wait till I get back from tour to do it. Never happened. And of course, March 13th rolls around. Everybody kind of knows things are about to lock down, and I was on the ground floor of a brownstone, super dark down there, and no internet, and all I had to do was play music. I couldn't do anything else, and I just had a giant playlist of this music, of vintage Caribbean music, and just one by one I transcribed every tune, or not every tune, but I transcribed a lot of them. So I made all these charts, and then I recorded them on acapella, which is kind of like, did you ever see the video of like the Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
So I played all the, I would play the bass on my bass clarinet, and I did have a piano at the time, which really helped, and that's where I wrote Habana Hammock, actually. Um, on the piano, but I worked more during the first 3 months of the pandemic um than probably any other point in my life. I was working on music probably 10 hours a day.
Wow.
And yeah, really just transcribe, not even really practicing. Just I was like, I may as well use this time. Let me do it. I didn't need internet to use Sibelius. So I just did that, and then if I needed internet, I would use my phone as my hotspot. But everything was just recorded on my phone, and eventually, I got tired, and not tired of the music, but tired of just being in a 400 square foot apartment by myself. So me and a couple of friends ended up going up to Manchester, Vermont, and renting a house from July. It was July 2nd through October, if I remember the dates correct, 8th. Not October, September 8th. So it was like right after Labor Day, and that's where I spent the last part of the pandemic. Well, at least in the Northeast, because Vermont, one of the least populous states. I could go out, I could hike, I could still play music. I was with a couple friends and a dog. Um, it was a great time,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, a prolific time. I know that sounds a little um, cold, but it was. I mean, I got a lot of work done, especially in Vermont too, but especially in those first few months of the pandemic. And then I came back I put everything in storage, so I didn't have an apartment, which was nice. And then I helped my folks move down to Florida, stayed in Florida for the winter because it didn't make sense to be in New York. Everything was still shut down. And then I came back in 2021. Um, I came back, I want to say the end of March, and reconnected with my now fiance, and we're getting married in September. And I moved to Sunnyside, Queens. A year later, she joined me here. So that's how I got through it. And
Right on.
Yeah, I definitely made the best of it. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I think that was kind of the general sentiment for a lot of, especially musicians, is that a lot of people really did take advantage of the time. So I'm curious, with this out and new material, live shows, things are opening up. What are you hoping a listener gets from this album?
what I hope a listener gets from this album. Well, I hope it's a great summer soundtrack. Um, I hope people just enjoy it for what it is on the surface level. It's fun music, it's chill music, it's sunny music. Um, so I hope people enjoy it on that surface level. I would say one level deeper than that. I hope people kind of just find something new that they haven't heard before. I mean, I was working on a bunch of John Kirby stuff, um, and the song Juliana by Lionel Belasco popped up just after like a song finished on YouTube. It was up next, and I heard it, and I was like, I've never heard anything that sounded like this. So it kind of had like a almost like a gypsy jazz vibe with the strings um, and clarinet, but it was very folky and very islandy, and I was like, well, this is pretty interesting. So I again, that playlist that I worked from, I just started up that playlist then after hearing Juliana, and just kind of went down a rabbit hole, had, hundreds of, or, you know, probably, yeah, 200 songs or so. And now I have a book of all this music. I have some originals in the vein. And so, yeah, I hope people kind of get inspired by the music the way I was. Um, and then a level deeper, I hope I get a resort gig in Barbados.
There you go. That's
That's
it. That's real dreaming right there.
it.
So how did this journey begin for you? How did you get into the music? Where were you born and raised? How did it all happen?
Sure. So I was born just north of the city. Sorry, just north of New York City. For those that are not in the Northeast here, I was born just north of the city in a town called Ossining, which is where Sing Sing Prison is. And I asked for a violin. I got a saxophone when I was 8, and I had to beg for lessons, but I was practicing on my own. I didn't have any guidance. And then after my parents saw that I was practicing, I was making myself practice by myself as a 9 and 10-year-old. They were like, okay, maybe he's serious. So I studied under Dave Finucane, who's a fantastic tenor player. He ran a small club called One Station Plaza in Peekskill, New York. I think he now runs a club called the Sharp Nine um, in where's Duke? He teaches at Duke now. Was that Winston Salem or
Yeah, North Carolina. Yeah,
Durham? Anyway,
Durham. That's it. Yeah.
wherever he runs a club called the Sharp Nine that I hope is doing well down there, and he was always a fantastic player and teacher, and so I owe a lot to him. I went to DePauw University with a W, not an L, in Indiana, which because it was a school of liberal arts and a music school, which my mom liked in case music fell through. Um, and I'm debt free, thank God. So for those reasons, I went there, and yeah, just came back to the city afterwards and started gigging. Yeah.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away, that made you think, I want to do that one day?
The first live jazz show I saw. I mean, I remember even locally, I saw um God, who was the singer? I saw a singer, I should remember her name. Oh, it's gonna kill me. It was at Danny's Cafe, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was in Ossining.
Yeah.
And it was a small little restaurant that somebody just wanted to have music at, and we went there and saw music, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I was already playing music, but I went up and introduced myself to the musicians, and blah 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 blah. And yeah, I definitely had the bug early for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, definitely.
So who were some early influences on the horn?
Well, the earlier influences for me was, a lot of Joe Henderson, Wayne Shorter, Train, you know, um, growing up, and especially even through college, big Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Ugetsu record, and Freddie Hubbard. I wanted to play bebop um, after school, but then I came back to New York and realized, I'm not that good. And also, not a lot of people seem to be really interested in this. Although it has the vibe has shifted in New York quite a bit since then, I will say, with clubs like Ornithology coming out, and the kids seem to be really into it again now. But I actually joined a rockabilly band um, led by Izzy Zaidman, who's a New York staple, let's call it. And he's kind of like a country swing rockabilly guitar player. And that's when I found out who Django was.
Yeah.
Because school doesn't teach you about Django. You have a Miles and Train course, but they spend one day on Louis Armstrong. Don't mention Django Reinhardt, of course. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then when I left that band, I just started doing gypsy jazz pretty much full time, and learned all the music in Central Park and in the subways. And some other guys were starting the Balesmen at the same time. So that was around 2011, 2012. And that band has been pretty successful over the last, I guess, almost 15 years, 14 years now. Um, and from the gypsy jazz stuff, I was learning more New Orleans jazz, traditional jazz, kind of all at the same time. And going to Mona's jam session, which has been going for over 15 years, and that's led by Dennis Lickman, who's a world class, clarinet player and violin player and mandolin player. But yeah, I was learning a lot of that stuff. And that's kind of just where I found myself want the music that I wanted to play was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What continually motivates you?
that's a great question. If I could quit, I would. I think it's not, the. I mean, I do like the lifestyle. I will say that I like being out late, and although these days I'm not out as late, but having the freedom to make my own schedule, kind of create my own destiny. I do like that aspect of it. I mean, it's the music. It's that feeling, and it's the feeling you get when you create something with a group of people, in front of other people. It's not replicable. That's the one thing that AI won't take away from us.
Yeah.
It just can't be recreated. So um, it's the same reason why a band is better than a DJ at a wedding. It's just there's something that happens where it's just magic. It doesn't happen every time you play, but when it happens, it's like a drug. So, and I think most other performers would say something similar. Um, and yeah, the creative bug. Yeah.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one performance in the history of jazz, where are you going?
Woo.
Yeah.
I heard Django played with the Laquona Cuban Boys when they were on tour in France in the mid 30s, and I think I would probably have to see that. Um, um, and I would love to see Django. Django is just the best. He's the most interesting, creative, unique sounding. I would probably say I would see that. In terms of in terms of jazz, there's also some rock stuff I would love to see too, but we don't have to talk about that here.
Did you see the Woody Allen film that he made with
Oh,
Sean Penn?
the Sweet Lowdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. And also I remember when um Midnight in Paris came out,
Yeah.
and of course I'm a big soprano player, and so I remember I never heard Si tu vois ma mère before, and so I heard that and I was like, well, I'm transcribing this now as soon as I heard it. And actually I think my parents might have said, we just saw this new Woody Allen movie, you should hear it, or you should see it and listen to the song and theme. So yeah, yeah, Woody. But
Great film.
say again.
Yeah, it was a great film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great film.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I love Django. Yeah, especially on kind of a gray fall, little rainy day. Just makes sense.
oh, absolutely. And I especially for like his big cinematic works like Bolero or something like real dark, and it's he's basically playing with an orchestra, and yeah, I love that stuff. Absolutely love it.
So speaking of live shows, what are you doing to promote what's coming up for you? How's all that transpiring?
So I recorded this in New Orleans with I knew I wanted Charlie Halloran on the record. Charlie Halloran's a fantastic trombone player, and one of the only other cats who really kind of ventures into this world. I think his bag is mostly 60s and maybe some late 50s. And my bag is like 30s. And we go into there's some songs in the 50s. Some like Cha 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 and late Begin stuff, but mostly it's like 30s stuff. But I knew I wanted him on the record, and I kind of commandeered some of his band for the record. So shout out to Pete and Hafe, but and Chris Tokarski plays with him sometimes. But I did bring Josh Dunn down with me. Speaking of Woody Allen, is in Woody Allen's band on guitar and banjo. But sorry, what was the question? I went on
Just
a
live shows,
live
promoting.
shows. Yes. So I've been trying to book. The reason I brought that up was I wanted to play with the band I recorded with. And not that there's not fantastic musicians in New York, but it would be nice to like play with the guys that were on the record. And so they were actually, but they're in New Orleans. They're coming up in August, but the only date they have available is August 12th. So I've been trying to reach out to places to get that exact date, which is a Monday, August 12th. And it has not worked out so far, but I'm still trying. So,
Right on.
I do play a weekly show on Tuesdays, which is just a trio of me guitar and bass, and I play some percussion on my feet. And so I do that every Tuesday, and then there's I've been doing a show at a spot called Only Love Strangers as a 4 or 5 piece as well. But
Right on. So if anyone wants to get this album in the proper format, or any of your other work and anything else going on in your world, where can they go?
yeah, they can go Bandcamp / Gabriel Evan, bandcamp.com / Gabriel Evan Orchestra. If you want to buy it, if you want to if you want to hear mediocre MP3 versions of it, you can go to Spotify or YouTube. Everything is either Gabriel Evan Orchestra or Gabriel Evan Music. And or you can buy a hard copy as soon as I get them back from Orange Grove Publicity.
Right on.
I think I'll have about 30 or 40 hard copies left. We'll see if I actually sell them. They were only really for promotional, but as not a lot of people still use CDs, but I know a lot of radio shows still want the CD. So
yeah, it's still out there. Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Gabriel, this has been great, man. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you bet. And before